Welcome to Hot Off the Press, the show about new releases, the authors that bring them to us. Before we get started, let's go around the room here and have everyone introduce themselves. We'll start with you, Jeannie.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Adams. I write urban fantasy, paranormal romantic suspense, and space adventures with my friend Nancy Northcott. And that's me.
All right, thank you. Suzanne.
I'm Suzanne Ferrell, and I write romantic suspense. I have some that are historical, but mostly mine take place in Ohio. There's some that are darker than others, and some are in a small town. And I've recently stepped into the world of pre-World War II romantic suspense. We've got some spy chasers running around.
All right, perfect. KJ?
I'm KJ Howe, and I have been writing Kidnap and Ransom thriller novels for the last several years. And I've been immersed in the kidnapping world for about 6 or 7 years, trying to bring authenticity to the page. And my character, Thea Paris, is an elite kidnap negotiator who travels across the globe bringing hostages back home.
All right, perfect. Patricia?
Hi, I'm Patricia Sargeant. I write mysteries as Olivia Matthews and romance as Patricia Sargeant and Regina Hart.
All right, perfect. And finally, Elle Marie.
Hi, I'm Elle Marie Wood. I write psychological horror, and I pretty much stay there. However, I am trying my hand at romance, so that should be fun.
All right, thank you so much. Now, let's go ahead, and I'll start with you, Suzanne. Tell me something about your most recent or new release and kind of the idea that brought it about, either for a book or if it's a series.
It's part of my Edgar's family novels. They take place in Columbus and Cleveland. And this time we're going back to Cleveland. The book was brought about, my son kind of came to me with an idea. My sister loves serial killer books. And for 9 years, she keeps saying, write a serial killer book. And I keep saying, I don't write serial killer books. But my son came to me with an idea, and they're finding homeless people dead on the streets, drained of their blood. So this is it. I don't know if you can see that. It says drained. Oh, I'm terrible at this, people. And it have my little dog down here. They apparently have to have a little dog in books. And then we find the person, but that's the cover of it. And it actually comes, it's at the editors now. It's self-published, so we'll be putting it out probably around the October 1st to October 10th, somewhere in that time frame.
All right, thank you. KJ.
Sure. Well, given my backdrop tonight, I'll talk about Skyjack. And I was inspired. I discovered during some research that up to 50 years ago, there actually was no security when you went and flew on an airplane. And, there was a rash of hijackings over the 70s and 80s, and they needed higher security. So they reached out to the public and asked, what kind of things would you recommend with respect to creating security, protection for passengers? And some of the things that came in were very interesting, including giving all passengers boxing gloves so they couldn't shoot a gun while they're flying, so their hands are tied up, giving flight attendants tranquilizer guns, so that they could put out someone if they were causing trouble. And also maybe having a trap door on the airplane so that someone did cause trouble, they could drop them off. And a lot of these hijackings actually were people trying to, get to Cuba. And so they thought it would be a great idea to design an airport in Florida that looks like Cuba and have them land there and be arrested. So this gave me some thought, and I thought to myself, okay, why not have my character Thea Paris on a plane with 2 young African boys she's taking to their new home and have the flight be skyjacked. And the adventures begin from there. And I'd highly recommend it as in-flight reading material.
All right. Patricia, how about yourself?
Well, my Sister Lou Cozy Mystery series, it was inspired by this particular Catholic sister with whom I used to work. I enjoyed talking with her so much that during the day I would invent reasons to go to her office and chat with her. and we were having a conversation. She made these connections between two things that on the surface didn't look like they could be connected. But when she explained it to me, I saw how she developed that connection, and I thought, wow, she would make a really great amateur sleuth. And so my Sister Lou mystery series was born with a Catholic sister who is a reluctant amateur sleuth. The first book is Mayhem and Mass, and the second one, it's a trilogy. The second one is Peril and Prayer, and the last one in the trilogy is Alibis and Angel.
Okay. And what is the last one about?
Alibis and Angels?
Mm-hmm.
There is some political intrigue in there. There is a mayor who's running for re-election. The town mayor is running for re-election, and someone from her past is trying out to get revenge. And we just need to identify which of the people from her past is the one who's trying to kill her.
Okay.
Alibis and Angels.
All right. Perfect. Elle Marie, how about yourself?
My most recent novel, actually, is the T-shirt that I'm wearing. I don't know if you can see it. The Realm is coming out in October, actually October 29th. It's actually a sci-fi horror mashup, which is kind of unique for me in that I typically, like I said, stay in the psychological horror lane. But psychological horror offers or lends itself to so many different collaborations, if you will. I mean, it straddles the line between mystery and suspense, like naturally, thrillers as well. So I'm kind of always on the edge with it. The sci-fi component is not your traditional, when you think of sci-fi, you think of space and, I don't know, aliens or, whatever the typical response there would be. But sci-fi in the sense that alternative worlds or alternate realities or parallel universes is where I'm diving into with this one. And it's inspired by my thoughts about fate and the afterlife. So indeed, about 3 sentences in, you realize that my main character has died and he's waking up in this realm and has to navigate it. And the poor man has to run within a page, run literally. So the pacing, is a little bit quicker than what you normally find in psychological horror. But again, it's not necessarily a surprise considering how it straddles the line of so many different genres.
All right. Perfect. And Jeannie.
I can't wait to read that, Elle Marie. That sounds great. And I've read Skyjack, and it's fabulous. I've read the Edgar series of Suzu's, and they're fabulous. And Patricia, I just started yours, and it's fabulous.
Oh, thank you.
Well, my next release, or my release that will come out when this is airing, is in my Witches Walk series. Witches Walk is set in Haven Harbor, Massachusetts, which is a virtual town. It's a town I made up. It's occupied by the witches who escaped Salem before the witch trials. And this would be the 7th novella in this series. And it comes out in an anthology called Trick or Treat at Canham Castle. And I'm in that with Nancy Northcott, Gail Martin, writing as Morgan Bryce, and Karen Crane. And that drops September 25th. So, and that novella is called Trouble Under the Tower. It involves some ghosts and some sexy archaeologists and a lot of fun.
So is Haven Harbor, you said you made it up, but is it based on a town, or is it a conglomeration of multiple
It's sort of a
towns?
conglomeration. It's a little bit Salem. It's a little bit Newburyport, which is very close to the town that I set it in. It's sort of a typical New England town otherwise.
Okay. So I'll start with you, KJ. Is there, trying to think of a way to say this, when you're writing, do you know when you start a book if it's going to be standalone or series, or you just strive for always series? Because I know with publishers that's the way to go now. Which way do you do it, or does the story predict?
Well, so far I have written series only, but I would be very open to doing standalone. I have a lot of ideas and I'm always excited about them, and I only wish I had more time to write. I've just started a new series right now. I'm about 4 chapters from finishing the novel, and it's about a hostile environment consultant. Now, anyone know what that is? Okay. So this character is someone who guards VPs, executives, celebrities in very dangerous areas of the world. So for example, and one of my friends is actually one, and it's the book is loosely based on his kind of life and job. And bottom line is he would travel with people like Anthony Bourdain or Geraldo or, top, kind of news people from CNN and BBC. And he takes them into places like Afghanistan, Iraq, and, other exciting spots. And basically he has to protect them and as well as plan ahead and have egress routes, mapped out and make sure they get in and out safely. And I don't know if any of you guys are, fond of the singer Josh Stone, but he's also worked with her and taken her different places because she wanted to do a concert in every country. So this is kind of where we're at. And I find series is very satisfying because of the fact that people fall in love with the characters and they want to come back for more.
All right. Patricia, what about you? Standalone series?
Actually, I've done both, and I find them equally enjoyable. As KJ said, not only do readers enjoy coming back to certain characters, but authors enjoy coming back to certain characters too, especially since that means you don't have to do another character sketch because you've already done one. So I enjoy both.
How important when you're doing a series is it to get the series Bible going?
Oh my gosh, I cannot overstress how important that is. When I'm reviewing my, when I'm doing my revision, sometimes I'll realize that I gave someone a red car at the beginning of the book, and in the middle, it suddenly becomes a black Jeep, and it's very frustrating. So that Bible has every little thing in there. Their characteristics, like if they like to play with their earring or they pop chocolate all day, I have to include everything like that in there.
All right. Elle Marie.
My first 2 books were standalone, and The Realm is the first book of a series. So I've done both. I think that there's a lot more flexibility in doing standalone pieces because you get to, one of my novels is about a vampire, from a psychological horror perspective. Another is about a ghost, again, from a psychological horror perspective, but they're 2 completely different, entities. This is unique in that it's character driven. So you're following this poor guy who has to run right away, and you kind of want to know what happens right after he gets out, or will he get out of this scenario? So moving to the second book was kind of expected. So after having finished the first, once I finished reading it for the, after the edit was over and I was reading for fun, I said, well, I got to do something else. I got to do something else for this. This is a great, the realm in and of itself is a great place to be. And I'm enjoying the characters that came to be in that space. So the next book isn't necessarily about the guy who's running in the first book, but it's about in beings that he encounters along the way. So it's nice to watch them grow, but I really do enjoy the standalone book. I think that it just allows you the flexibility to write something different, be something different, and share a different side of yourself.
Okay, thank you. Jeannie.
Well, I've done both as well, and I like a standalone because when you're done, you're done. But so many times the story is big enough, or the world you've created is big enough and rich enough and interesting enough, like Elle Marie said, that you kind of want to go back there. And or you've done so much bloody work on it to make it work, like the world Nancy and I built for Outcast Station, or this Caneham Castle series. We did Caneham Castle at Christmas last year, and we literally created a castle and the town and all that from nothing. And I couldn't agree with Patricia more about story Bibles. What color was that again? But I actually like series. I mean, I like standalones because you are sort of it's complete in and of itself. But I also like writing series because I like visiting the town, I like visiting the people, I like revisiting it. And a lot of times the story may be done for the people that you've created, but not all of them.
Mhm.
So I like to keep going.
All right. Suzanne.
Yeah, I prefer series. They're easier to sell that way. I started out with the Edgars. I had a girl heroine. She ended up with 3 brothers in the book in Kidnapped. And from there, we kind of let the whole thing mushroom into this series. Then I set up I made up a small town for my Weston series. And I thought I'd only have a couple of books. And now my readers all help me name the places. We have like the Peaches and Cream Cafe, the Curl Up and Dye, it's called the Dye Right Beauty Salon, the Yeast and West Bakery, and they all name them all. So for me, series is good, but when you have a series that you're now into your 6th or 7th book, especially the small town where everything has a name and they have owners, if you don't have a story Bible, you spend half your time going back on who did what, where, and what book was that in? And my readers remember better what I wrote than what I wrote. I went to a party at a reader gave for authors that we do this tea in October. And we go in and she goes, and I love that story about the twins. And I thought, I didn't write a book about twins. Then I remembered the very first book in the series had twin boys. And I couldn't even remember that when we were talking. It was kind of embarrassing.
So do you ever reach a point in a series where you want to end it, but your readers don't want it to go, or?
I haven't gotten there yet. We did have to take a left turn when we ran out of brothers in the Edgars books. We ended up with a character that they kind of adopted into the family. He was a U.S. Marshal, and he's very taciturn. In fact, if you looked up the word taciturn in the dictionary, there would be, Costello's picture. If he could answer with a grunt, he would. But he ends up with this fashion photographer. He hates photographers, and that's his heroine in Exposed. And at that point, I figured out we're going to have to change the modus operandi. So we've run out of family members unless we go cousins and third cousins 4 times removed. So we are doing a Edgars Security and Investigations. ESI is going to be their name. And that lets us move into other books. And the book we're putting out in October are 2 minor characters from the 4th book, Vanished. And they kind of meet in Vanished, and then we go forward from there. I have a couple cousins. I've got a long lost brother. We can maybe go another 4 or 5 books. We'll see. The small town, they keep asking me for this character and that character. And I kind of drew the line when they asked me for Cletus's book. Don't name a character Cletus, especially make him lovable, because then everybody wants his story.
You gave in too. You gave in.
I gave them Cletus's story. It's an interesting story because I usually have a sex scene in my books. And I had to make this one behind doors because I just could not wrap my head around Cletus having sex. So I'm just saying.
And on that note, now it's in all of our heads. So I'm going to go to you, Patricia, on my next question.
What's supposed to follow that?
Well, hopefully it's an easy one. What surprised you the most about writing this book or the series? It doesn't have to be, anything that happened to the character. It could be something you learned, could be just an experience you had from it.
I'm not quite sure how to put this, but let me just explain by saying, when I developed the Sisterly Mystery trilogy, there was no cat. It's a cozy mystery, and the cozy mystery was new to me. The genre was new to me when I started. It was my first one. And my publisher sent me some of their cozy mysteries that they had published previously so that I could get a feel for what they were looking for in a cozy. And I promise you, none of the books they sent me had any pets in it. So I thought, you know, if I come up with this Catholic sister who lives in a mother house, if she doesn't have a pet, I thought it would be okay. Because, you know, she talks to her friends, and she talks to her relatives, and she talks to God. So where in the pacing would she talk to a cat? And in a mother house, you can't have any pets, so I thought it would be okay. Imagine my surprise when they put a cat on the cover. So I learned several things from that experience. Number one, put the pet in the cozy. Just do it. Number two, throw your publisher under the bus. If your readers start asking you why you have a cat on the cover and there's, you know, they're waiting for the cat to appear in the story, just no diplomacy, just, well, have a seat, let me tell you. So those were my learning lessons.
All right, perfect. El Marie, what surprised you with your book?
Well, I had intended for, not that there would have been a love scene, but I intended for one of the characters is in love with another. And I thought she was going to be interested when I sat down to write, but that's not what happened. And I kept trying to make it happen. And I'm thinking, I mean, I'm writing this, how is this happening? It just wasn't working. Every time I attempted to force the storyline to go a certain direction, it just would not go. But I mean, what was interesting, what came out of it, and I don't want to give away too much, of course, but what came out of it was a really interesting perspective that she had. And her actions thereafter were kind of interesting. I mean, I felt like I was sitting back and watching, and, you know, my fingers were doing the talking and I was just watching what was happening. It was truly interesting because I sat down with the intention for a romance to occur, and it's just not there. It's not there. And that's not even a spoiler. It's literally just not, no. You know, but it was a true surprise. But I enjoy that. I'm a pantser. So yeah, I don't do the outlining. You know, I may have an idea of what the next story will be, but it'll be nothing more than a note on a sticky pad, or I'll type some sort of cryptic sentence and continue to like push it down the page so that I'll get to it at some point whenever I'm ready to. But it's not like a true guide. So when I had a guide in my head saying, okay, this is going to occur, I thought it was hilarious and surprising as well that I would just forego that and say, no. Why would you do that? Why would you plan that? What made you think you could do that today? So that's the biggest surprise that I've ever had in writing, where I wanted it to do something else and it literally did not.
It's perfect. How about you, Jeannie?
Oh gosh. Well, for the latest book, the Trick or Treat at Kingdom Castle one, I knew absolutely nothing about Bonfire Night in England. So this castle is in England. It's in England, but it's on the Welsh border. So it's the Welsh Marches. And the English celebrate November 5th as Bonfire Night, and they're celebrating an event that did not happen. So Guy Fawkes plotted to blow up the Houses of Parliament, but he didn't blow up the Houses of Parliament. So they celebrate the fact that he didn't blow up the Houses of Parliament by having bonfires and fireworks and burning Guy Fawkes in effigy, although they don't do that much anymore. Mostly it's just the bonfires and fireworks. And according to our English person who is our reader and source to make sure we don't screw anything up, English, they don't toast marshmallows. So every single one of the four of us wrote some sort of let's toast marshmallows thing into our books, and she's like, no, we don't do that. So I was like, well, alrighty then.
Well, hopefully it wasn't a big rewrite.
No, it wasn't. They don't celebrate Halloween as much as we do, although it's catching on a little more over there commercially than it is over here. But and two of the four of the other folks know how much I'm a Halloween girl. So so we had a Halloween ball at the castle so that we could really decorate for Halloween, even though the English don't normally decorate for Halloween. Those are my two sort of surprises. I'm like, doesn't everybody decorate for Halloween? And why would you celebrate something that didn't happen?
Perfect. Suzanne.
I kind of knew where I was going with this book because, like I said, the idea was kind of handed to me. And I'm a retired nurse, so the whole blood and all that kind of stuff of what I was going to do with that, I was comfortable with. But I discovered how well Google Maps helps you when you live in Texas and you're writing about Cleveland. And I needed old abandoned buildings, and I needed all kinds of odd places to put in the book. And I've fallen in love with Google Maps. You pick your address, you go there, you have the map, and then you have the little thing that lets you see the world view of it. And then you can drop a little person on the road and you can look around. I'm like, what else can I look up on Google Maps, and who else can I spy on? So that was kind of the fun part for me. I also figured out that this will probably be my one and only serial killer book. Just saying, not my cup of tea. I had to watch a lot of Criminal Minds, hours and hours of Shamar Moore. It was just hard to do.
I'm so sorry.
So difficult for you.
My art.
All right.
Much
I'll
harder.
help you with your research if you need some assistance next time.
Well, okay.
If that's what you're going to put me through, I'm happy to, I'll take it off your plate for you.
Hours and hours of Shamar.
All right. KJ, how about you? What surprised you with your book?
Well, when I decided I wanted to write about kidnapping, I realized that I had a lot of work ahead of me. I wanted to bring authenticity to the page. So I read everything I could get my hands on about kidnapping and realized it wasn't even close to enough. So what did I do? I Googled Kidnap and Ransom Conference. And guess what? There is one.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Where?
Now, is this for the people committing it or the people
Right.
trying to? That's like, sorry.
Maybe a mix of both, but I flew down to Miami to the Biltmore Hotel. This group, a very small conference, 80 people maximum, and everybody there, was in this milieu other than myself. And it was really funny because afterwards, the conference organizer had said to me, she goes, I was really worried when I, heard you're interested in research and it's a very dark, shadowy world. And she was like, I thought you might be ostracized in the corner, but every time I looked over, you were chatting with someone. So I thought, oh, okay, that's good. And my secret, frankly, was taking them to the bar. And, I met some phenomenal people, kidnap negotiators, former hostages, and psychologists who help with recovery, a host of different experts in that field. And many of them have become very close friends over the last, 6-7 years. And I feel really honored by that. And it was an incredible learning experience. And I try to integrate, a lot of this information, hopefully in an entertaining way, in the books, so that when you put it down, you feel like hopefully you have some travel safety tips and have a better idea of what's going on in the world today with respect to, kidnapping, because it's really on the rise exponentially. And for two reasons. One is that there are so many displaced military and police that they don't have jobs, they're not getting paid. And so they turn to kidnapping because they have great security skills and they have no other way to put food on the table. And terrorist groups are using it as a fundraising mechanism. So gone are those bake sales, and so it's really tricky situation. So it's been a really special journey, and I'm really grateful for the kindness of strangers. I think that's what has really touched and surprised me the most. And if you ever want to kidnap anyone, I'm probably the girl to talk to.
Terrifying panel.
Or the one not to
Talk to.
mess up with, yes.
I thought I was the horror author on here. I'm sorry. That was
No one make KJ mad.
right.
All right. All right. So the next one is just basically about writing. El Marie, I'll start with you. What is the best or worst writing advice you've ever gotten?
Write what you know. It's the best and the worst.
Okay.
Because write what you know makes sense on its face, right? You can't, don't try and write about, write highbrow if you don't live in that world, if you don't speak the language, if you don't behave in that way, if you don't know what a cotillion is, write your environment. It'll be easier to get it onto the page. But writing is about growth. I mean, for me at least, every time I try to sit down and create something new, I want to stretch myself. I want to challenge myself. So if I'm only writing the things that exist in my world, I'm limiting myself greatly. Because I don't know anything. If you think about it, none of us really do. We do pretty much the same thing as a routine during the course of our day. We know maybe 20 people close enough to consider them friends or family. And that's it. It's such a small window, such small exposure. So writing what you know it sort of pigeonholes you into this one little space that if you get used to it, it's very difficult to break out of it, because then you feel the sense of, I don't know what I'm doing, so I shouldn't do that. Or I don't know anyone who speaks that language, so how can I try to learn something about their history, their ancestry, and then write something about it? I don't know. I don't belong to that, religion. I don't belong to that group, whatever it is. But what do you think research is for? What do you think? I was told that early on in school. So, you listen to people who are supposed to be, educating you and teaching you the way to do things. And when I heard that, I kept thinking to myself, as years have gone by, how many people took that message to heart and they didn't step out of that box, and now they're stuck writing, about their 5-mile radius of knowledge, And so it was good advice from the start, in the very beginning, write what you know when you're beginning, so that you can get it all on paper, because it'll come out easily. But then, it's the worst advice I've ever heard for someone who wants to continue and write as, professionally, and put out material that other people would be interested in reading. Because if you're only talking about the suburbs, one little suburban community, you're limiting your readership. So that's the worst.
Perfect. Jeannie.
Worst writing advice I ever got is don't write sports heroes because they don't sell. So I had this whole series planned about sports heroes, which I never wrote because they don't sell. Well, I can't tell you how many of those have hit the New York Times bestseller list. So I will count that as the worst advice I ever got. The best advice I ever got was, no one can tell you how to write your story but you. You can listen to people's advice, and you can or you can take a class and try to learn a new way to do something. But if you're not a plotter, don't try to force yourself into that box. I see Sue shaking her head. Yeah, no. Because I know Sue's is like me. She's a pantser. And I know you said you were too, Elmarie.
Pantsers unite.
But I've learned to plot to a certain degree, but I'm still really pretty much of a pantser. And that advice to just write your book your way, I was in a critique group that ended up just being absolutely horrible for me, and I almost stopped writing because they were all plotters, and I thought, I am just an absolute and abject failure because I can't do that. If I write that way, I don't want to write, and I can't write. And I finally quit the group, and I was searching online and looking at some things, and I found that term, pantsers. I was like, ooh, maybe that's what I am. But that was the best. Write your book your way.
Perfect. Suzanne.
Let's talk about plotting. Or let's talk about not plotting. I have been to every plotting seminar there is in the world. I don't plot. I like the place where you're writing and all of a sudden your heroine pulls a gun on your hero and you write it and you go, ooh. And your husband says, well, is that a good ooh or no? I don't know. She pulled a gun on him. Well, you're the author. You're supposed to know. I said, yeah, but now I don't even know how we're going to unarm her or disarm her. And I like that. I like where you're just writing along and your subconscious goes left turn and you go that way. And the story ends up being better. I don't plot, but I do realize that at the end, when I get to the end of the story, if you go back, you'll find all those places where you have the plot turns and you have the dark moment and you have the goal, motivation, and conflict. I have a whole issue with the word goal too, but for me, it doesn't work. And each author, when you sit to write, you have to do your thing. And I've had numerous people look at me like I am insane when I tell them not only do I not plot, I write one draft. And when I get to the end, I may have to edit for typos and a few places here and there, but I don't layer in draft after draft after draft. And they look at me like I'm insane, and I probably am, but you have to know your craft. And when you get into book 20, you have to trust your craft and you have to trust your personal style. I always cracked up at conferences when people at every conference, they would ask Nora, so what is your process? It doesn't matter because her process ain't going to be your process. Yeah, I don't plot. People that tell you have to plot, that's, no, not going to happen here.
All right. KJ?
Well, yeah, I'm not a plotter or a pantser. I'm pants on fire. Anyway, so I guess two pieces of good advice I've received. One is to pick a topic or a milieu that you're incredibly passionate about, because it really does shine through on the page. I mean, I think, for whatever reason, we've lived our life, we've experienced things very different than anyone else in the world. And you're the one person who can write that book, and there's a reason behind that, whether the themes echo something in your childhood or, some kind of experience that you've had. And trust that, and don't, because I once signed with an agent because I won a contest, and you can probably tell that I like international thrillers, and that is sort of where I need to write. And he was asking me, can you write a small town romance, and it just didn't feel like the right fit. And maybe I could have stretched and pushed myself to do that, but I trusted my gut that it just wasn't the right genre for me, really. I guess that's what it is. So pick something you're really passionate about, and as well, embrace criticism with the very strong caveat that it must come from a credible source, and you have to balance it with feeling a sense of resonance when someone gives you advice and you think, you know what, I think, darn, they're right. But at the same time, have a spine and a backbone to know that the advice you're receiving or the criticism you're receiving doesn't resonate, and to stand strong in your story. And balancing that is never easy. I love to have criticism. I think it's really, really helpful, and it only helps you grow as a writer. But at the same time, you really have to trust your gut.
I'm just trying to imagine KJ writing a small town.
I know.
It would be a very dark small town.
All right. Suggestions would you have for someone to find that balance, on the criticism, what to take and what to leave? Is that coming straight from you or beta readers, or what are you looking for to figure it out? Because, I'm just wanting to make sure we're covering it. You were saying, with the advice to know when to take the criticism and when to stand firm and say, no, that doesn't work for me.
Are you asking me particularly, or?
Yes.
I just want to make sure I wasn't a general question. Yes, I would say a couple of things. First of all, if 3 or 4 people are saying the same thing as beta readers, that is a really big sign that you should take note, because if there's a commonality in, the feedback. I have beta readers. I also have all my experts read my books because I want to make sure it's authentic. And it's very interesting because some of them aren't the biggest readers, but they come up with some fascinating feedback and comments because they're just reading it, as a fresh eyes on this piece. At the same time, I think you have to be really careful if someone's coming in that has a completely different writing style, like let's say, a fellow writer, fellow author, and they just would do something completely different. You have to realize that their approach or their advice, their suggestions might be helpful for other types of books, but maybe not yours. I did my master's at Seton Hill in writing popular fiction. And one of the best experiences I had was that when we were in the groups, we had to critique cross-genre. So I was in a group with romance, sci-fi, fantasy, and I learned so much because people in other genres, they, like, for example, in fantasy, there's so much world building. I was able to kind of translate that into my book and try to build a world of kidnapping. So I don't know if that's helpful, but just bottom line is, I think you also have to ask yourself, is this a person whose opinion I strongly respect? And if it is, then I would really take note. But it doesn't always mean that they're right.
All right, thanks for the clarification. Patricia.
If I could just say, KJ, that was really good. I agree with you that it really does depend on, in a way, your gut, whether you should take that advice or not. You know, if you get the acid reflux, you probably should not take that advice. But the best and worst writing advice that comes to mind is when I asked someone, what's the best marketing tip you could give me when I was first starting out in the publishing industry. And more than one person said to me, the best marketing is your next good book. So I just stayed in my writer's cave and just kept my head down and kept writing. Well, that's good in that I had product. I was writing novels. But it's bad in that I wasn't building my brand or growing my footprint. So you still have to do some external marketing. Writing the next good book really isn't enough.
All right. Perfect.
I think that comes from the old one model of publishing, where you sold to a publisher and then the publisher was supposed to do all your marketing for you. And writers of a certain age and a certain time period feel that that was all you were required to. You would do the production of the story, everything else was handled by other people. And in the last 10 years, it has become quite obvious that authors can be more involved and should be more involved. So yeah, I agree. I heard that bad advice too.
But I've heard it recently too. So it's not to shake people.
Yeah.
All right. So next question, start with you, Jeannie. What do you hope people get out of reading this story, the most recent one you've got in King's Castle?
There's magic afoot in Halloween. Actually, the thing I always want anybody to take away from any of my books is that love is love and love always wins. There's a way. And I'm certainly not Pollyanna by any means. And anybody who reads my book knows that I generally put my characters through unmitigated hell, but there's light at the end of the tunnel, and there's always light. And so that's what I always want people to take away from any book of mine, is that there's a way, and love will fix it most of the time.
All right, perfect. Suzanne.
I would say that there's a strength inside of everyone, and no matter what kind of situation you're put in, if you dig deep enough, you can use that strength to help you overcome bad things that happen to you or to people around you.
All right. KJ?
Family is a central theme in my novels. I feel it's an incredibly powerful thing threaded through all of our lives. Love them or hate them, right? That's our family. And my character, Thea Paris, has a very dysfunctional one. So I really wanted to thread that. And I also, I gave Thea Paris type 1 diabetes because I saw that there weren't a lot of characters, in fiction with any kind of health issues or disabilities, other than, of course, drug and alcohol addiction in crime fiction. And I felt strongly that would be really interesting to write. And my background as a medical writer also helped me with that. So I felt I really wanted to show that you can have a character with, an illness or a physical disability that can still be strong.
All right, perfect. Patricia.
With my Sister Lou mysteries, I feel that books can build bridges and tear down walls. And what I was hoping to do in part with my Sister Lou mystery trilogy is to help dispel some of the popular media stereotypes of women religions. So I hope that people, when they get to know my Sister Lou, realize that not all Catholic sisters are dour, judgmental people.
All right. Elmarie.
I love all of the beautiful sentiments each of you have.
Does the horror writer.
They're coming from the horror side of the room. I'm listening to you. I'm just like, love, 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 love.
Terror.
Right? I'm like, no, that's not what I'm going to say here. My goal is to scare someone. I want you to read the book and say, oh my God, I didn't know that was happening. How do I get out of this? I've been wrong for years. And I'm being honest. My goal is, I write for escapism. You're going to come into the book knowing you're going into a realm where like
it's a little commercial there.
I'm just saying. But like, you're going to go into this world knowing that, or hoping that it's not real, just hoping that I've made it up, but not knowing for sure. And you're going to go and escape from your daily life, be afraid and sad that you got in here and now you don't know how to get out. But then if you put the book down, you want to pick it up again because being frightened in that way was so much fun. So I'm hoping for escapism. I'm hoping that I give people nightmares and they can't go to sleep, turn on all their lights. They maybe there's a love component because if they can find someone to snuggle them and help them get to sleep, they found they're made for life, huh? I mean, I tried. I wanted to come up with something that was lovey, sweet, and I knew it. Once all of you started talking about romance, I'm like, no.
Hey, sometimes just escaping is the perfect thing.
That's right.
So, one more question before we get ready to end, and I'll start with you, Suzanne. Since we're getting into the holiday season, what is a holiday-themed book that you recommend to someone other than yours? Put you on the spot.
Well, I'm laughing because I'm a character in it.
Oh.
That's interesting. Wow.
My critique partner, Sandy Blair, wrote a book years ago called A Highlander for Christmas. And this Highlander gets time travels at the time of Culloden. And I hope I said that right, the Battle of Culloden. And he ends up in modern day America. And somehow he has to take the heroine to the hospital for some reason. And then this nurse walks in and it was me. And I was like, oh, it's me. But it's a fun book. And when she was writing it, the first thing we had to decide, does he time travel with clothes or without clothes? I mean, seriously. So we decided, of course, he appears naked in this woman's house. So it kind of spirals from there. It's very funny, and it brings in modern American Christmas themes to a man who's never heard of it from the 1700s Scotland. They never celebrated it. So it was quite a fun book. And it really is my favorite book. She just has a way of telling a story that's amazing. And I really love that book.
Okay, perfect. KJ, holiday related book could be Christmas, Halloween, Thanksgiving.
I'll go for The Spy Who Came for Christmas by David Morrell. And David Morrell, you may not know, is also Rambo's daddy. And so I think it's fantastic that, such a talented writer, actually David was kind of the reason I wanted to become, a thriller writer. I loved his spy series. And he's so incredibly varied in his books, and he keeps challenging himself. So I loved his book about Christmas, and I think you'd all enjoy it.
Perfect. Patricia.
Okay, the one that came to mind is Festive Mayhem, and it's an anthology of crime stories written by 10, they're novellas written by 10 different authors. And it's predominantly a Halloween theme. One of the authors is Paige Sleuth, but it just, there are a lot of subgenres of crime mystery and a lot of subgenres of fiction, paranormal, historical, contemporary. I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay, perfect. Marie.
I'm going to go classic. It's not necessarily related to a holiday, but it's horror fiction. It is Halloween, right? So we all knew that I would go there. But Bram Stoker's Dracula, it's a classic. And many people think that they know the story because they've watched a movie or two. But you have to read the book to truly understand the story. And I mean, I think that for any serious horror or Halloween enthusiasts even, I mean, if you like vampires even, you should just really take the time to read it. It's a relatively quick read considering that it is a classic. So that would be my suggestion.
All right, thank you. And Jeannie.
I'm gonna say it's a novella called Mistletoe and the Major by my friend, my Australian friend Anna Campbell, and she and I were both in a box set of Christmas stories that were, the theme was mistletoe. That was the only thing that connected the stories. But it is the most interesting sort of second chance at love Christmas story. And it's a short read and it's super cute. And I keep going back to it at the holidays. So I'll recommend that one. But I'll second Elle Marie's Dracula, because it's sort of the thing where if you've never read the book, and the movie's all you know, the book is so much better.
Oh my goodness. So, and I'm not even disparaging the Gary Oldman movie. You know, I love that one.
Yeah.
I'm not even talking, that's a great movie, but still, you've got to read the book. It's so much better.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So let's go around the room and have everyone let people know where to find you on your social medias. And we'll start with you, KJ.
Sure. Well, I'm on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, and you can find me basically at KJ Howe Author, and also on my website, kjhowe.com. And you can also find me via the Thriller Fest website because I'm involved with international thriller writers. So, I'd love to hear from you.
All right. Patricia.
I'm on Twitter at Books by Patricia, which I know is not that imaginative. And my website is Patricia Sargeant, SARGEANT.com.
All right. Elle Marie.
My website is elmariewood.com. And you can find me also on Twitter at elmariewood1. Not that imaginative either. I also have a Facebook group. Wait for it. Wait. Facebook.com/elmariewood. I'm very creative, I promise.
All right, Jeannie.
Well, you can find me at jeannieadams.com. You can find me almost always on Twitter at Jeannie Adams. I'm also on Instagram and Pinterest and some of the other stuff too, but mostly there.
All right, perfect. And Suzanne.
I'm at SuzanneFerrell.com, and on Facebook, I think it's Suze Ferrell. It could be Suzanne Ferrell. Who knows?
I think.
And Twitter is Suze Ferrell, and Instagram is Suzanne Ferrell, I think. It kind of picks which one I want to be.
Oh, I should have said you can also find me on Continual on many of the panels and also on moderating some.
All right. Again, thank you, all of you, for being here, and thank you for watching. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.